Health Minister Zweli Mkhize has dismissed claims that there's a case of the coronavirus in the Western Cape. 71 samples taken from suspected cases across Africa have been examined by the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. All tests came back negative. More than 490 people have been killed by the deadly infection since the outbreak from China last month. Limpopo's health authorities are monitoring a man after he presented coronavirus-like symptoms. The patient was admitted to the Alice Russ Hospital with a high fever. The Limpopo Health Department says the man's been isolated in hospital as a precautionary measure. There's no confirmation whether he has the virus as yet. The man works as a luggage handler at the border post between Botswana and South Africa. Botswana has confirmed 5 suspected cases of the coronavirus. 10 people on a cruise liner in the port of Yokohama, Japan, tested positive for coronavirus and disembarked for treatment as authorities monitor the thousands still on board. Japanese Health Minister Kotsumbo Kato says the remaining 3,700 passengers will remain quarantined on board for 14 days. The health checks began on Monday evening after an 80-year-old Hong Kong man who sailed on the vessel last month tested positive for the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Chinese-ruled gambling hub of Macau asked casino operators to close for 2 weeks in an effort to curb the coronavirus outbreak. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize says South Africa is prepared to detect people who may have the coronavirus. Special thermal reading scanners are available at all ports of entry. The coronavirus has claimed the lives of over 490 people so far and has infected over 14,300 people. Many flights to and from China have been cancelled due to fear of the spread of the virus. This has left many travellers frustrated and unsure about what their options are when it comes to travel insurance claims. Well, to discuss this a bit further, I'm joined now by Christelle Colman. She's an insurance expert at Old Mutual Insure, and she joins us now from our Sea Point studios. Thanks very much for joining us, Christelle. So how will the travel bans and the cancellations that we're seeing impact someone who's planned a trip and now needs to cancel their travels?
So, I just want to take a step back and just quickly talk about the 2 areas of travel insurance that are, affected by something like the coronavirus. So on the one hand, you have your medical expenses. So if you do incur medical problems while you're traveling overseas, international travel, those costs could be recovered from your insurer through a travel insurance policy. And then on the other side, as you mentioned just now, is the cost that you incur for the cancellation of the trip. So whether it is the flights that are being, sort of taken into a different direction, or your accommodation costs that you don't use because you can't make the trip anymore. So it's very valuable insurance cover at this point in time, and something that people really should consider. If we take the example of the coronavirus right at this point in time, we have 2 groups of travellers again. We have those who are already affected and who might be in mainland China, and they can't get out of the country and they need medical support and assistance. And then the rest of us who might be planning a trip to a country that might be affected by the coronavirus. And in both these instances, your insurance policy would respond. You must remember that not all insurance policies are created equal. We have different limits of cover offered by different insurers. But typically, if you were in China at the moment and you had to get medical assistance and support, you would be able to get that through your insurance company.
So we've been advised by, or people around the world have been advised by their governments to ensure that they only travel to China if they absolutely have to. So say if a South African has, some cover and they do need to travel for one reason or another to China, would they need to then perhaps consult with their insurance company beforehand?
That's an excellent question, and it's really, really important. Insurance companies, even if you have taken out your travel insurance policy, insurance companies still have the right to give notice and say that they won't be covering a certain incident or element of the cover that you took out. They have to give you 31 days notice, but they can still do that. So if you have taken out your travel insurance policy last year, you have to go. I would suggest that you immediately contact your insurance company to make sure that the cover is still, in fact, in place. If the cover isn't in place, you are really going to battle to get medical expense and cancellation and curtailment insurance cover to travel to the affected areas. And again, that's one of the main pieces of advice that we as insurers are also giving our policyholders is, if it is not absolutely critical, rather postpone your plans, make different arrangements, because we find ourselves in unprecedented times. We've never really experienced anything like this. And it's much better to be safe than sorry. So that's the word of advice from our side.
Yeah. So what happens in circumstances where you have booked a flight to China ages ago, you're scheduled to go, but actually you can postpone it or cancel it altogether? Can you get cover for that, for cancelling?
Absolutely. The cover is cancellation and curtailment of your journey. And, we keep on using the example of the coronavirus, but a different example could possibly be that you fall ill in South Africa before you leave, and you have to cancel your trip as a result of that, or your child gets ill and you can't go. That's a typical risk that's covered by a travel insurance policy. And you would then be able to inform the airlines and the accommodation providers. You would then get a portion of refund from the airlines and the accommodation providers, and the balance of what the trip cost you would be able to claim from your insurance company. Typically, some insurance companies, as I said, not all policies are created equal. So anything from getting 50% of the cancellation costs to 100%, depending on the level of cover that you chose and the premium that you are prepared to pay. And that's the next thing that I would like to stress to your listeners is, now is not the time to skimp on your insurance premium for your travel insurance. If you are going to be traveling anywhere in the world, this virus is really starting to affect all parts of the globe. Make sure that you take out adequate medical insurance cover, because this is not your medical aid. This is a short-term policy that you take out. And if you are, for instance, in the United States and you have to get medical treatment, it is extremely expensive, even if you consider the rand-dollar exchange rate. So make sure that you have the right insurance cover in place, that you ask the right questions, and you take out a little bit more money and you pay that premium so that you know that you're okay.
So from your experience, Christelle, have you had a lot of people calling Old Mutual, expressing concern, and how are you dealing with this particular crisis and communicating as you are now in terms of what people need to do around the coronavirus?
Well, we've launched a media campaign to make sure that we get the message out there, and that we do ask our policyholders to engage with us to make sure that they are adequately covered before they leave. And then, of course, those that are affected, we partner with a global organization called Europe Assistance, which is a global business that looks after the emergency assist services when it comes to travelers, everything from medical to cancellation, curtailment, and luggage delays, for instance. They have a team of people on the ground in China supporting travelers who are in China at the moment with medical assistance, getting them to the right medical facilities, and then things like just support over the telephone from an emotional perspective, getting information back to families who possibly can't get hold of their family members in mainland China. So those services are all the things that you access when you take out the correct insurance policy, and we don't really appreciate it until things go wrong. So we are able to look after our clients, and we do the best we can. You must remember what the authorities decide. In local government where the outbreak might affect travellers, we can't override that. So we have to work with whatever those restrictions are and make the best of a really terrible situation for many people.
Christelle, thank you very much for that message. For people who are travelling, don't skimp on travel insurance. That was Christelle Colman. She's an insurance expert at Old Mutual Insure.